The last recording on Bethany Kowalski's phone was 7 minutes and 32 seconds long. Police found it 3 days after she disappeared from her apartment in Millbrook Heights. What you're about to hear, well, the authorities released only fragments. But I have the complete file. The first scream happens at the 2-minute mark. By the 7th minute, whatever was hunting her had reached the bedroom door. This is her story, and maybe yours too. Tonight's story is titled, Every Time She Screamed, Something Got Closer. But before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from, and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, if you're wearing headphones, perfect. If not, you might want to put some on. Or you can lower the volume now, just enough so my voice blends gently with the stillness of your room. Close your eyes. Let your shoulders sink just a bit more into your pillow. You don't have to do anything. Just listen. Bethany Kowalski wasn't supposed to be alone that Tuesday night in October. Her roommate, Jessica, had left for Portland that morning, promising to return by Thursday. Their apartment on Elm Street sat on the 3rd floor of a converted Victorian house, the kind with thin walls and creaky floors that telegraph every footstep to the neighbors below. Bethany worked as a data analyst for a small marketing firm downtown. 26 years old, methodical, the type of person who double-checked locks and kept pepper spray on her keychain. She wasn't paranoid. She was careful. There's a difference. The evening started normally. She grabbed Thai food on the way home from work, binged 3 episodes of some crime documentary on Netflix, and was settling in for an early bedtime when she heard it. A sound from the hallway outside her apartment. Not the usual sounds, not old Mrs. Hendricks shuffling to the bathroom or college kids stomping up to the 4th floor. This was different, deliberate, like fingernails dragging across wallpaper. Bethany muted the television and listened. The scratching stopped, then started again, moving slowly down the hallway toward her door. She checked her phone, 10:47 p.m. Too late for maintenance, too early for the drunk college kids who sometimes stumbled through the wrong entrance. She crept to the peephole and looked out. The hallway was empty, dimly lit by a single flickering bulb that the landlord had been promising to replace for months. But the scratching continued. Closer now, right outside her door. That's when she made her first mistake. She called out, "Hello? Is someone there?" The scratching stopped immediately, not gradually, like someone pulling their hand away. Just stopped, as if whatever was making the sound had frozen the instant it heard her voice. Bethany waited 30 seconds. A minute. 2 minutes. Nothing. She convinced herself it had been a cat. Maybe Mrs. Hendricks' tabby had gotten loose again. She returned to the couch, turned the volume back up, and tried to focus on the documentary. But the feeling of being watched didn't leave her. At 11:23 p.m., her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "I can hear you breathing." Bethany stayed at the message. Her hands began to shake. She checked the locks on her door. Both the deadbolt and the chain were secure. She went to each window, making sure they were latched. All secure. Another text. "Your heart is beating so fast." That's when she called 911. But here's the thing about emergency response in small cities at midnight. You're not exactly priority 1 unless someone is actively dying. The dispatcher was polite but firm. They'd send an officer when one became available, probably within the hour. In the meantime, stay on the line if she felt unsafe. Bethany hung up. She didn't want to stay on the line. She wanted to call her sister in Denver, wanted to hear a familiar voice. But as she started to dial, another text arrived. "Don't call anyone else. I'll know." The apartment felt smaller now. Every shadow seemed deeper, every ordinary sound amplified. Bethany grabbed a kitchen knife and positioned herself on the couch where she could see both the front door and the hallway leading to her bedroom. At 11:56 p.m., the scratching returned. But this time, it wasn't in the hallway. It was inside the walls, moving slowly, methodically, from the living room toward the back of the apartment. Following the path of the electrical wiring, maybe, or the old plumbing. Bethany pressed her ear to the wall, trying to pinpoint the source. That's when she screamed for the first time. Not a horror movie scream. This was raw terror, the kind that tears your throat and comes from somewhere primal. The kind that says every instinct in your body is telling you to run. The scratching stopped the instant her scream ended. But something else had changed. The apartment felt different, smaller, as if the walls had moved inward just a few inches. She told herself it was her imagination. That fear was playing tricks on her mind. New text, closer now. Bethany grabbed her phone and started recording. She wasn't thinking clearly. Terror has a way of making you do strange things. But some part of her understood that if something happened to her, there needed to be evidence. The recording starts with her whispering into the phone's microphone. It's Tuesday, October 15th, almost midnight. Something is in my apartment. I don't know what it is, but it's... Something hit the front door. Hard, like a body throwing itself against the wood. Bethany ran toward the bedroom, still recording. You can hear her breathing, ragged and panicked, on the audio. The banging continued, not random, but rhythmic, purposeful. Then she screamed again. This time, something screamed back. Not human, not animal, something in between, like a sound that had learned to mimic human terror but couldn't quite get it right. Too low, too long, with harmonics that human vocal cords simply cannot produce. On the recording, you can hear Bethany crying now, whimpering. She's barricaded herself in the bedroom, pushing her dresser against the door. But the apartment has gotten smaller again. The bedroom feels cramped, claustrophobic. The front door stopped rattling. Complete silence for 37 seconds. I've counted. Then new sounds began, scratching from inside every wall. The ceiling, the floor, as if the entire building had become infested with something that lived between the spaces, in the gaps where normal people never look. Bethany's phone shows the time, 12:34 a.m. She's been recording for nearly 40 minutes. Her voice on the audio is barely a whisper now. It's everywhere, she says into the phone. The walls, the ceiling. I can feel it moving. The room keeps getting smaller. This isn't possible. This isn't. She screamed a third time. Longer now, desperate. The screaming back was closer, much closer, and this time there were multiple voices joining in, a chorus of not quite human sounds that seemed to come from every direction at once. On the recording, you can hear something trying to get through the bedroom door. Not the doorknob. Something was clawing at the wood itself, methodically shredding through layer after layer. Bethany whispered into the phone, "If someone finds this, tell my sister I love her. Tell her I'm sorry I didn't visit more. Tell her." The dresser scraped across the floor. Whatever was outside had pushed the door open just enough to squeeze through the gap. That's when Bethany screamed for the fourth and final time. The final scream isn't on the recording. What you hear instead is silence. Complete, absolute silence that lasts for 1 minute and 18 seconds. Then, very quietly, something that might have been Bethany's voice says, "It's hey." What happened next? The police won't release that portion of the audio. But I've heard it. The sound isn't screaming anymore. It's something else. Something that starts human and becomes other. The recording continues for 3 more minutes. Mostly silence, broken by occasional sounds that the forensic team couldn't identify. Sounds like breathing, but with too many lungs. Sounds like movement, but with too many limbs. At the very end, just before the phone's battery dies, there's whispering. Multiple voices, overlapping, saying the same thing over and over. Closer now, closer now, closer now. Police arrived at 6:47 a.m. Wednesday morning. A neighbor had called about screaming around midnight, but with Halloween approaching, noise complaints weren't unusual in the college district. They found the front door unlocked. The apartment was empty. No signs of struggle, no blood, no evidence of forced entry. Bethany's belongings were still there. Purse, keys, even her shoes lined up neatly by the door. But here's what they don't put in the police reports. Every officer who entered that apartment commented on the same thing. The rooms felt wrong. Too small. Cramped. Like the walls had been moved inward. The building's maintenance supervisor checked the blueprints. The measurements were correct. The rooms were exactly the size they'd always been. Bethany Kowalski has never been found. The case remains open, though it's been transferred to the cold case division. Her sister flew in from Denver, packed up the apartment, put everything in storage. But here's the thing that keeps me awake at night. 3 weeks after Bethany disappeared, her apartment was rented to a new tenant. a graduate student named Trevor Hoffman. Trevor lasted 6 days. He moved out suddenly, wouldn't explain why to the landlord. Just said the apartment felt cramped and forfeited his security deposit. The next tenant, Angela Cruz, lasted 4 days. Then Rebecca Walsh, 2 days. Then David Kim, 1 day. The apartment at 847 Elm Street Unit 3B has been empty for 8 months now. The landlord can't understand why nobody wants to stay. He's dropped the rent twice, offered move-in incentives, even had the place professionally cleaned. But if you stand in that hallway at night, if you press your way to the door, you can still hear it sometimes. Scratching in the walls. Getting closer. I received a text message while researching this story. Unknown number. It said, "I can hear you breathing." I haven't screamed yet, but I can feel the walls getting smaller. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like and subscribe for more tales that will keep you awake at night. And remember, some things are always listening.